Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad you're here on this Monday morning. Start off another big week with Panhandle Outdoors. We appreciate your viewership. Take a look at our weather brought to us by Gulf Coast Air Conditioning. Drew Pollard and his hard-working crew taking care of everyday comfort needs. High today, 72, low 53. Not a bad day. Really looks good out there. Take a look now at our Monday moon phase brought to us by Panama City Coca-Cola. We had a new moon this past Saturday, so it's dark nights, really good dark nights. And we're going to have the full moon. Actually, the full moon is going to be the last Saturday of October will be the full moon, so it's waxing up in that order right there. Our tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn. We're back to some decent tides. We had to fight those neap tides. We're back to some decent tides today. Low this morning at 8:05 and high at 10:38 this afternoon, tonight. Water temperature remains around 80 degrees off of the end of the pier. Okay, we're going to take a break, come back with our special guest. Okay, welcome back and welcome to a familiar face here on Panhandle Outdoors. Captain Rick Corley.
Good morning.
Glad to have you back.
Yeah.
Ran into him the other morning at breakfast, and we were started talking about the history and all of everything going on with the boats and all. And we went to the expert, and he brought a book. I said, come back on and finish those stories on the steamboats, because a lot of folks enjoy talking about that. And you told me about this book you have. And what's cool, this is the book right here, Perilous Journeys, A History of Steamboating on the Chattahoochee, Apalachicola, and Flint Rivers, 100 years, 1828 to 1928. And it's written by Edward Mueller. And you said you knew this guy, and you had the book with you now.
Yeah.
And we have some pictures. So getting back to steamboating itself, what was the... Okay, going way back. So tell us a little bit about
During the cotton era from 1828, and of course, what really hurt was the boll weevil.
Yeah.
It kind of killed that river because the cotton, they started doing more over west of us. Mississippi River got important then, more so. But back then, there was so much cotton and lumber coming up and down that river. It was big business. I mean, Dad, like I say, he ran away in 1919 and went aboard the Callahan. And I had two great uncles that were the chief engineers on that boat. And he started out as a cabin boy. The cabin boy died back at that time because of the Spanish flu. That was what was happening then. I just went up to Fort Benning and I found out something there, that my dad was there when they first sold the Blessey Dairy Farm to make Fort Benning.
Okay.
And he was, growing up, and he hated milking cows. It was hard work. And so he ran away to get away from milking cows. And went aboard that boat, and they needed a cabin boy, and they thought he'd just come down looking for a job like most kids did then. He wasn't but 11 years old. And so they hired him.
Okay.
Well, they finally found him just before time to go back to school, and he said, you got to come back and go to school. He said, no, I ain't coming back to the farm. I ain't milking no more cows. I'm tired of that. And they said, no,
Is that the boat he was on?
Yeah, no, that's the boat. See if you can find the Callahan. I think it's in there.
Anyway, the Callahan. Okay,
yeah,
we'll find it.
It was the J.W. Callahan.
We'll go through all. We got.
And then they later on had the J.W. Jr. And they all belonged basically to the Bradley Company, which was a very large textile industry then.
We'll go through the 100 years and all, but I'm looking at that first, from 1828. I mean, it was wild out here.
There was no locks and dams until you got above Columbus, Georgia.
This is a part of our heritage and history that I love to look back on. You don't have that many, I won't say eyewitness because Captain Rick wasn't there, but his dad was there and his uncles and all that. You just don't get that many times to talk about those things. So I know that 1828, people just settling in, coming in. Some people are coming, I know people came in and went on land and just stayed here.
Right. Well, they would, we received most of our lumber and stuff like that here, and mail and a lot of foodstuffs via the tarpon, running from Pensacola. They run Mobile, Pensacola, Panama City, Apalachicola, and Carabel.
And that was so cool because it was different. That came along the coastline.
Yeah.
The steamboats coming up down the river,
Yeah.
but it all goes back to the same common denominator.
Yeah, they would wind up
water transportation.
They would wind up taking cargo in Apalachicola Bay on the tarpon from some of these packet boats, and there was a bunch of packet boats. I mean, it wasn't just 2 or 3. It was probably at least 24 running that river on a regular basis.
Who had the right of way?
Whoever's coming downstream.
Whoever's coming downstream. That's
Yes,
interesting because that was pushing them.
Yep.
They had a
You can't stop sometimes. So, get out of the way, guys. I'm going to Apalachicola, whether we want to or not.
That's a good trivia question. Old river boats, who has the right of way? The one going down?
Well, back then they didn't have any radios either, so they kept the windows open a little bit where they could hear.
Okay.
And it's what they call a prolonged blast. There is no long blast like people say. It's prolonged.
Okay.
Because you want to blow it long enough they're going to hear it, because coming up, as you get started around one of these bends, you didn't want to meet somebody southbound. You'd hold up below the bend if you needed to. You blow 1 6-second prolonged blast. If they heard that, he would know what side he was doing, and he would answer with a prolonged blast. And then as soon as y'all saw each other, whoever was downbound would give what signal he wanted for you to pass, either 1 whistle or 2 whistle side.
Does that tell you which side to go on?
Yes, sir. If you blew 1 whistle, that means I'm going to stay to the right. I want you to stay to the right, and we're going to pass left hand to left hand.
Okay.
And if you hear 2 whistles, he says, I'm going to come up on the point way, and I want you to stay down in the bend and come around on my right side.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Turn left and put right to right.
That's
and
interesting.
That way, now if he blows 3 whistles, it means he's backing trying to stop. And if he's still coming, you know he's got a problem. You stop and wait on him to get through there.
Ah, so 3 whistles one just
it's backing up. If he blows 5, he means I'm out of control. Stay away from me. I don't know where this is going to end up, but we got to do what we got to do. It's a danger signal.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and look at some of these pictures. Okay, welcome back. So here with Captain Rick Corley telling some great history here and heritage here. We would like to spend once a month at least, try to talk about our history and heritage around the Florida Panhandle and of course steamboats. This book right here though was interesting because 100 years of history, steamboating and all kind of pictures and all on the 3 rivers here.
Yeah.
So. We took some pictures out of the book we're going to share with you. So this is interesting here. This is
that's what it's like at lunchtime.
Okay.
Yeah, or dinner time or whatever. It's meal time on board the Padula.
The Padulas. Okay. Okay. This picture here.
Now that's at the Dillingham Street Bridge in Columbus, Georgia, and that's the railroad bridge, which is still there between Columbus and Phoenix City. Phoenix City would be on the left, and on the right would be right up towards the engine as you're going over to Columbus, right now in Muskogee County.
Well, there were a lot of things going on in Columbus and Phoenix City because you had so much
yes, sir.
Water and rail.
Yep, that was the head of navigation. That's 261 navigable miles from Apalachicola.
251 miles.
Yep.
Okay. What about this one here?
I believe that's the J.W. Callahan.
That's the Callahan.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Now
And that's the Appalachian. She had an incident. She kind of sunk and Chipola cut off.
All right, folks, we know where the Chipola cutoff is, and what happened is the We didn't know what happened. But that's a sort of swift place.
Well, yeah, it is, and that's what may have got them, is they may have had a barge, and one end of the barge broke loose, and she snatched her around her. Now that's the Graco. That's my dad's towboat. That was me running it, and he's sitting back there on the fantail up there on the Texas deck, they call it, enjoying the ride. And we were going up light boat to get a barge and then come out of there.
I want to go back to this wreck right here.
Yeah.
At the Chipotle Cutoff. That usually when it starts going, people start going overboard and all that. Now, do you think they have time to get lifeboats out or swim to shore? You know any more detail?
Jump in and swim over.
Is that what it was?
Or grab. A lot of times they were carrying, barrels or stuff like that, and some of it would float. They just grab whatever it took. There wasn't any life jackets. Life jackets didn't really come about until in the 60s. To be real important.
That's a good point.
And they were old K-pop. They'd only float you for about 2 or 3 hours, and then they'd get water soaked. Then you better get rid of it. It'll sink you like an anchor.
Because it started water.
I can remember building 10 boats and paddling Grand Lagoon all the way up to Long Point as a kid. And people said, "What was your life jackets like?" I said, "We didn't have a life jacket. We had 2 Viking fins and a squally mask. We swam if it sank." Yeah,
that would just been interesting. I would like to read a story on that because I know you did some good research on it.
Yeah, they did. You didn't have life jackets back then. They had you just grab whatever you could find that would float. It was wood. Of course, a lot of the boat was wood too. So there was some of it you just tear a piece off and jump in.
Well, you think about when the river's treacherous, it's really 2 times, when it's really high and when it's really low.
Yeah.
So it could probably, it's one of those extremes probably when they had that accident there. Probably with the swiftness of it coming.
You get caught, and if you hit a what they call a deadhead or a log that was mired, you could turn the boat over. And that's very probably what could happen. It capsized.
All right, the Queen City. Check out the Queen City.
Now, my dad ran that boat for a while as captain back in the day.
To bring those barrels. What all was in those barrels right there?
It could be molasses, whiskey. Of course, in the 20s, it wouldn't have been whiskey because, you had Prohibition started then, from 1919 to almost 29.
That's right, about 10.
Yeah.
Yep,
and
right.
In fact, my dad, after they shut the river down for that, he wound up working for my great uncle, who was one of the biggest bootleggers in Phoenix City, hauling moonshine whiskey downstream from Columbus.
Okay, so making up there in Alabama, we had all the corn and everything.
And then bring it down the river, and then when he'd get to Apalachicola, Uncle Charlie would come down there and give him money to buy label whiskey, and he'd go all the way to Cuba in that 55-foot boat by himself.
He'd go to Cuba?
Go to Cuba and buy label whiskey and bring it back. And they gave that away to the justice of the peace and the sheriffs of the counties along there because they usually had the speakeasies.
Yep.
And so that was payola to tell them where the revenuers were, to stay away from them so they could run illegal booze up down the river.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, this is true. This is true stories now.
Yeah.
And what do you mean, labeled whiskey? I mean, it had a label on it, and that was a big deal.
It was mass produced. It was stuff like Cutty Shark and.
So he took the boat down by himself.
Yep.
Wow.
And then we'd come back, and he'd always go on a dark night, no moon, and he'd go in and out and get around the revenues because back then they didn't have radar.
Yeah.
And so. If you didn't have lights and it was a dark moon night, you probably couldn't be seen if you were more than about a half mile away.
So he went into Cuba.
Mm-hmm. He went into Havana and
did he speak Spanish? Have enough Spanish to talk to them? They knew.
Yeah, he could communicate with them, and he'd load it up and then come back.
Well, do you think he ever picked up any Cuban cigars?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
That's still an item people still love to get. But,
they can make good stuff.
Yeah, I didn't realize. So he would go from Columbus to Apalachicola, then to Cuba, then back.
Yep.
That's pretty strong.
And he'd do that on the dark moon nights, and then the rest of the time, he didn't work. Didn't have to though. He made pretty good money back then
That's
in
funny.
the day.
So tonight, on the weather earlier, we're talking about tonight's a dark moon, so tonight be a good night for
And can you imagine running that river at night with no lights?
No, I can't.
With no locks and dams, in other words, whatever the current's doing, it's going to do.
Oh my goodness.
I tell you what, he was a first-class pilot on that river, and he knew it. I mean, he really could draw that whole river by memory.
Really?
Yeah, the whole thing.
We don't have that anymore. One more quick picture before break. Now, this is the Queen City at the Columbus Wharf.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. What they call the Dillingham Street Wharf. It's Columbus. It's on the Muskogee County side, and that's the 14th Street Bridge right there.
Okay, you see how high the bank is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's still you walk down a really good incline to get to that level.
Yeah.
Right there at Columbus. But that would, in fact, where that building is now, there's a big building that's a condo. It used to be a W.C. Bradley had the Jordan Mill there that made cotton. Okay. And they would make cotton and load it right there.
Load it right there.
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a condo.
Mm-hmm. All of those that are still standing are now condominiums.
Yeah. Condos take over everything, don't they?
Yeah.
From cotton mills to the beaches.
Well, Columbus is really pretty. They got a river walk down that's really nice. It goes all the way down to Fort Benning.
Really?
Yeah. And if you haven't been to the Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, I just went through it. And it don't matter if you go through it today. Wait about 4 months, you go through it, you'll see something new because they rotate the stuff. They've only got the ability to show about a fourth of what they got. So about every quarter they're rotating a new section in. 3/4 of what you can see, you can't see it at the time.
Is that on base there?
Yeah, no, it's right as you get to the main gate. You don't have to go on base.
Okay, good.
And it was very easy to get in there.
All right, let's take a final break. Come right back with Captain Rick. Welcome back. Let's take quickly a look at our fishing game time today, brought to us by Blue Water Outriggers in Port St. Joe. Looking at 12:34 to 2:34 this morning, and this evening after lunch, 12:58 to 2:58, right here in the middle of the day, and tides will pick back up, and should be some good outdoor activities going on. We're sitting here talking with Captain Rick Corley about the heritage here in the Florida Panhandle and different boats that have made such an impact on our economy and so many other things branched off from that. So fortunately, he's able to almost have a first-hand account from his dad and uncles and all really what happened. And you can read it in a book, but then you hear these stories. This is good. So we've got a combination of the book, which is great for 100 years, and then Captain Rick sharing the story. So let's move on. We appreciate Captain Rick being here. And what I do, like I say, one show a month on history and heritage. So tell us this next picture here.
And that's the W.C. Callahan, and she's stopped along the river. They're loading, you can see they're loading cotton in bales. They slide it down that ramp. That ramp goes down and the boat bumps up against it, and they can load it and work it back on the hurricane deck back there. And
that was smart. Just slide it right down that rail.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
It makes it a lot easier. Well, back then, you were doing a lot with very little.
Yeah, you had some ingenuity there.
Yeah, and there's the old tarpon, and she ran Mobile to Carabel and stops in between like Panama City, Apalachicola.
Yeah, we've talked about a tarpon a lot because it was so instrumental in it. So many families came here to San Andrew and Apalachicola.
A lot of mail, lumber, and all kind of commodities.
We could do a whole show on tarpon.
Absolutely, you could.
Okay, so this is the Callahan Jr. That's a good picture of it right there. Look at.
Yeah.
How many guys, the crew, how many was on the crew?
Well, you usually had 2 engineers, and you had 2 wipers, 2 oilers, and then you had roustabouts, deckhands, probably in the neighborhood of about 4, and then 4 to 6, and then of course you had to have a captain and what they call a pilot. If you're looking at wheelhouse, you see how big that wheel is? It actually went in through a cutout in the deck.
Okay.
And when you started learning, they would call them either a left-hand or a right-hand pilot, and people said, what are you talking about? Said, well, you can't stand behind that wheel. You got to see, so you stand off to the side.
Okay.
And if the captain was a left-handed steering pilot most of the time, if he preferred the left side, you stood on the right when you were training with it.
Okay.
And then what he would do is a lot of times his pilot would be a right hand, so he'd be on the other side. So what you do is learn to steer with both of them so that you could steer from either side.
Okay. You think anybody ever preserved those old wheels? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Where were some of them in a museum or something?
Well, you might find one down there at the tin shed at Apalachicola. He had a few of them.
They did have some.
Yeah, they have a few. But these things were, you know, they were as tall as I am. They're 6 foot in diameter. Because you had no gearing. You had to you needed that length to have the leverage to be able to steer that boat, especially in swift water.
Okay, here it is, loading dock. All these pictures in the book, and man, they could haul a lot of stuff, couldn't they? Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Now,
They'd haul basically roughly 100 tons.
They just threw wood to keep it burning, or steam, or
Well, they started out with wood, but later on they went to coal.
Coal. Okay.
Yeah, and at the very last, some of the boats even had diesel fuel boilers to
diesel fuel.
Yeah, they were beginning to get diesel fuel, try it out for burning it instead of coal and wood.
Rain curtains, that's something I didn't know about. They just had a way to cover it.
Yeah, you don't want that cotton to get wet.
That makes a lot of sense, because you don't think about it.
Yeah, it's heavy
out there
when
and
you
open.
do that. Yeah.
So you got a storm out there, so you put the rain covers.
Yeah, put the rain covers down.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, and that's the book right there.
Yep.
Peerless Journeys. And
It's good reading.
good read right there. Great pictures. I love a book like that that has so many pictures.
Well, you get a feeling for what really went on. And you stop and think, that little towboat I showed you that blown to death, it had a rip-roaring 110 horsepower, and we handled 2 barges with it.
Ooh.
Yeah, 2 barges. Now, today, if you don't have 300 horsepower to the barge with a diesel engine, they call it rafting. They don't call it towing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've run that river with 2 barges.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Scott Lindsay and I have talked about it over the years about even on the Choctawhatchee River, they had these steamboats, and there's some wreckage still in some of these areas, and people see it during low water.
There's still some wreckage in this one when you get low water. If
on
you
low
look,
water, you can still see that.
Find them in the Apalachicola, the Cibola, and the Choctawhatchee.
The Choctawhatchee, you said that was more of a logging kind of deal.
Yeah, there was a lot of lumber come out of that from up that river.
Yeah.
They did a lot of logging there. Up at Screamer, Alabama, there was a lot of logging done in that area, still even today.
Can you imagine how big those trees were they were cutting back in those days? Wow.
Yeah,
That was something else.
absolutely. Well, cypress was a big thing over here for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've run out of time, Captain Rick. I appreciate you coming back on the show and sharing all this history with us. It's just really...
Well, if you see me out and somebody wants to ask a question, don't hesitate. I like people unless they give me a reason not to.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. I appreciate y'all watching Panhandle Outdoors. Y'all tune in tomorrow. Y'all do something good today for your fellow man. Have a great day, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.